All right, everybody. Happy Friday. You are live on Shally's Alley, and it is Friday, May 8th. For those of you that missed it, may the force be with you. That was just a couple of days ago. And today we have a really unique guest, unlike any other guest that I've ever had on the show. We've had people that wrote the book on AI, we've had people that wrote the book on data science, but we've never had a former chief data scientist for a several very large financial institutions. Maddie's story is not your typical story. It is not your typical HR tech founder story. He is a quant from the world where bad decisions cost millions or billions even. Check out this career arc. He was managing director at Morgan Stanley and then became chief data scientist for JPMorgan Chase and chief data scientist for UBS. That's pretty impressive in my book anyways, because, that's where all the money is. Now he's applying that kind of rigor to hiring. And so the thesis for our episode today is, a lot of TA teams are making billion-dollar people decisions with technology that wouldn't survive a single day on a trading desk. So here we are to talk a little bit about the reality of what it actually takes to really have true data science rigor. And with that, welcome, Maddie.
Thank you.
Excited to have you here.
Word, Shally.
Great. Yeah, so we had told folks that we were going to talk about why most data strategies fail to influence real decisions, how AI, can help connect fragmented talent and business data, and how we can use data science to a practical hiring advantage. So I did have some questions that I wanted to prepare. And, we've been through a number of focus groups with your product lately. So I've got a bit of an insider perspective on that from the experience that we've had with what is going on with the product on the front end. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about volume. This is a problem that a lot of people are reporting. Volume applications going up, lots of candidates. I was just at ERE, Recruiting Innovation Summit, giving a presentation, and I asked about what some of the major problems that people were experiencing. And when I talked about too many applicants, inundated with applicants, that their hands went up. So this is a problem. Too many applicants is a problem that's being felt by a lot of organizations. What perspective do you have? What fresh perspective do you have on, handling mass volume of applicants that are very likely just not qualified, just, robotic applications? Tell me a little bit about that.
So this is the real problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
the real problem that, in fact, we were with a prospect yesterday, very large firm in the cloud data space, and they have been experiencing this nonstop, right?
Yeah,
and
it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
Clients tell us that, oh well, we just turn off the spigot, after, and which is a real problem, that you have good applicants don't necessarily come as the first 20 applicants or the first 100 applicants. So there is a real problem now, because you do want to see the 400th candidate that applies, who turns out to be your star, the star candidate, right?
Right. You don't want to turn it off too soon and miss out on the good ones, and you don't want to just leave the spigot on and have 20,000 applicants, because then you can't review all of that. I mean, even 200 applicants realistically is a massive number for a recruiter to, really genuinely be able to ascertain whether or not they qualify.
And there are, of course, recruiters who take pride that they can go through 1,000 applicants a day, 1,000 applications a day. And the sheer volume of this, like, if you want to comprehend, of course, there are people that do 1,000 trades a day on Wall Street.
Right.
But 1,000 trades a day, you have a lot of context that is very fixed, meaning it is one particular instrument, and you've done all the research. You're following exactly the news about that instrument and things
You
that.
have a formula that you're working with.
Whereas, if you're dealing with 1,000 applicants, those 1,000 applicants are very different people. They come from very different backgrounds, career trajectories, and a lot of them might also be, not really qualified to even cross your threshold. And so this problem you can view as two parts to it. One part is, are people applying indiscriminately in a spray and pray kind of manner, and that is happening a lot, right? So educating the applicant on what will not actually qualify them, right, or what is the minimum that will qualify them very explicitly, and say, if you apply, even if you don't have this, then not only will you be not considered for this, but you will never be able to apply another time with us, right? So that would be a very important thing to say upfront to the candidate, to say, we really require you. These are real minimum thresholds, and don't, then putting those minimum thresholds into the application process, so that they automatically, the application process, that intake process, can gauge and say, look, you don't really qualify because they've put in a must-have criteria of X, Y, or Z. That's one thing.
Okay.
The other thing is, let's say the must-have is a really, a lot of people pass the must-haves, and now you have, not 1,000 people, but maybe 400 people showing up in your ATS. Now, what do you do with that, right?
And so now you have genuinely qualified, minimally qualified people.
Minimally qualified people. And so in the ability to actually reason about these applications in a way that can provide, and in some automation, that can actually provide the analysis. So in Wall Street, we typically call this the, being able to synthesize information, and not just the information that you have in front of you, but the ability to go after and gather other related information.
Contextual information.
Contextual information.
Okay.
Do the analysis with respect to that entire context and present that to the decision maker.
So it's a more informed decision based not upon just the document that presents itself, but additional data points that are verifiable about that document. Okay.
Let me give you a couple of examples there, right? So one is that somebody might say that they have been, let's say you're trying to recruit a React front-end developer, right?
Okay.
Put in this thing. And if the person's current title is front-end developer, not React front-end developer, you don't want to ding them, but you want to say, hey, a front-end developer typically will have these kinds of skills, React skills. Okay. But more importantly, if you can actually look at what are the kinds of companies that they've worked at, and now you go get the companies,
and those companies use React, then you connect the dots.
And you connect them, right? What is the technology stack that is being used by this company, and now that's available, on the web.
Right.
There's information that is available. Now, your typical recruiter is not going to do this. But if you're do this and go marshal that data behind the scenes and bring the data to the forefront to say, look, these points are well connected. The person has worked in 4 companies in the past 10 years, and they've all used React. Now, that's a solid thing to have, a piece of evidence to have, on the basis of which a person's application can surface, higher than somebody that has never worked at a company that has used React.
And they just have React on their resume because they put it on there because they
took some training.
Took a class or whatever, right? Okay, yeah. So you made the decision to leave the world of finance and financial services where you were a technology leader and came over to the side of talent acquisition technology. And when we first met, that was the first question I asked you: was why would you do that? So when you got here, what was your first impression of the state of TA technology when you got into our space?
Now you should kind of remember that as a tech leader within large financial services firms, I had large teams, large global teams,
and did lots of hiring, right? So you weren't unfamiliar with TA, but you went from being a leader hiring people to actually technology,
right.
TA technology itself. Yeah.
Technology itself. And so I had some premonitions, or more than premonitions, some pre-read, if you will, of the state of technology and technology support that that TA folks had, right? And so the kinds of things that I've had frustrations with, as a hiring manager, a lot of it had to do with knowing the pipeline and knowing the state of the pipeline, right? But then we would repeatedly have conversations with the recruiter, the sourcer, and tell them, look, we're really a team like this. Let's say when I was building a large data science team, global data science team, I would brief the recruiter. I would take them through a day in the life of. And even with all of that, it is not easy to translate tech speak in that for a recruiter into tools that they would use to do sourcing.
Into what to look for, how to find. Yeah, right. Yeah. That's translating that is a big part of our job. Yeah.
Yeah, and that translation, I think, and the tools for those translation were missing. Clearly, we saw that. It's not that the people were not smart. People were smart that we were working with. The recruiters were smart recruiters, but not to give a ad for somebody, but they were smart people, and but they did not have the wherewithal to do this quickly, and also as technology changed. Now, data science came into data science when the field was new. There was nobody that was a data scientist. So what is a data scientist, right? And how would you define, how would you cast a net for someone that could be successful at doing that? And today, the same thing translates to what is a genomic scientist, right? And a genomic scientist has to do something in microbiology, but at the same time be very conversant with AI tools,
computation, and
right? Biology, all of those things. So it's a very interesting thing. So the state of TA tech say was there were some nascent HR tech folks that were, and I have good friends that started up these things, that were trying to do the right things. The likes of ZipRecruiter, the likes of even some folks that were looking at resume improvements and resume reading improvements, where they were doing some good things, but the larger organizations, the ones that are the 800-pound gorillas in the in the space, were very slow and had left a lot of frustration in the rank and file TA world, but they helped the CFO world because they were aggressively, bundling everything from HRIS to TA in one bucket with one price, which was attractive to the CFO suite, but not really providing the TA world with the things that they needed.
With the best in class solutions. I see what you're saying. So that's a funny way of putting it. I like that. It was almost like they had to bundle the pricing to make it attractive, which of course meant some of the things that they would sell were, let's just say, not the best.
And so the best of breed approach versus there is the one throat to choke approach, right? And the CFO and even CHROs like one throat to choke, like one person or one vendor partner to be held responsible. but then you give them 8 different, issues. They're going to prioritize the one that the CHRO or the CFO cares about the most, which is
Okay.
so which is on the payroll side, maybe, and
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you look at the big picture of talent management and human resources at large, um, there are things that affect way more people than recruitment and talent acquisition. So at the CHRO desk, you're right, payroll and benefits and um, development, professional development, and things like that are more critical because they affect more people. So, what are some of the most important areas in your observation? Then the most important areas in the TA tech stack that are not being addressed?
so you started the conversation today with one of them, right? Which is you have a huge inflow of applicants, and how do you actually surface up? So at the top of the funnel, how do you manage the top of the funnel to be high quality? Because if the top of the funnel is not high quality, definitely the rest of the process is going to suffer, right? You will, and this is what typically it takes place, that your hiring manager, which I was at one point, is chasing after you to provide them with some inflow. And so if your top of the funnel is not high quality, you're going to just skim something that you think is the cream but may not be the cream, and you
Right.
just pass it along. And then the hiring manager is going to get frustrated, is going to put
Lose faith in the process
lose
and
faith, exactly. and
Mhm.
and they're having to spend the time and effort in looking at and interviewing people that in the first 10 minutes they can say, hey, this is not the right person, right? And so the that's one part of it. The other part of it is really the notion of how to amass the information that you've gathered on a person. How do you keep that, for the longer term, for the full journey, so that you attach the kinds of insights that you have gathered on a person, you attach it all through the journey of taking that person from an applicant through a candidate to an interviewee to a finalist and to an offer person. How do you make sure that you keep all the notes and all the insights all bundled together as it goes from the person to person across this entire journey? And today that happens under multiple tools, right? So people put in their calendaring system or their emails, or they take notes
Okay.
on the side, and insights are kind of shared in conversations, maybe sometimes in emails, but the insight is lost for the longer term. So
So you're saying this fragmentation causes a loss of fidelity, a loss of insight.
a loss of insight, and
Okay.
it is also a loss of insight for two other purposes other than the immediate, the fill the rec process. The other thing is people development. So if you had the set of notes and insights on the person that is available to the hiring manager later as they looked at their performance and said, hey, but when we hired them, we talked, and this is what the feedback was. And having that as a way of rekindling the conversation with the person who's now an employee on, we originally thought these things, now why are you not doing it that way, or what are we not providing, and things of that nature. That's people development. And the other is retargeting the person for other roles later. So if you wanted to actually do some kind of lateral moves and internal mobility, talent mobility, having these insights in a constant place is going to be very important. Now, the other, so that's if you can move on from there. The other thing that is lacking is, a lot of firms that we speak with say, oh yeah, we like ontology. We have an ontology, or we use the ontology from our ex vendor.
Okay, hold on. Let me go get my boxing gloves.
So these ontologies that we've seen that people have, or they say they have,
They're
but
flat.
very, very fragmented, or very, I would say they're dated for sure. They're not maintained. They don't move with the times. And so relating things that should be related is not happening, whether it is from a job title to skills, or skills to other skills, or skills to tools, skills to tasks. All of these things are not being related within their ontologies. So if you go to some of our some of the tools that are out there that are quite popular, but you ask, if you even look at their demos, you will see, like for example, with one particular, I'm not going to name any vendors and shame them, but I will.
No, sorry. Let's not do that.
Right. So we've seen, for example, examples of one of the tools saying that, hey, this person has the skill Java, but they don't have programming languages. Now that doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
From a skill,
Java is a programming. Yeah. Right.
unless the Java is the kind that you pour in a cup and drink, that they have Java but no programming language makes no sense. So the other
Yeah, I
thing,
mean, an ontology is supposed to explain meaning in relationships, and that's the biggest difference between an ontology and a taxonomy. A taxonomy is a categorization, like the scientific. Everybody's familiar from their biology class. You got animal, mammal, dog, right? Dogs are mammals, mammals are animals. Like that's taxonomy, but the ontology explains the meaning and the relationship. So yeah, dog is a mammal, but dogs also can belong to owners, and dogs also eat food, and they can also be patients of doctors that are veterinarians, and they also may be service animals or police or soldiers. So like that is an ontology, and the ontology is far more complicated than I think. What a lot of times happens is they think it's an ontology, but it's actually a taxonomy.
exactly, and for us, this kind of in financial services experience, this kind of came about around the late 90s, right? This notion that, hey, every different if you will, practice within financial services, whether it is equities or equity derivatives versus if you dealt with debt and you dealt with debt derivatives. Now I've described at least 4 classes of instruments or 4 classes of securities. Now, each of these securities ultimately could be issued by the same company, right? So you have a Google issues stock, Google issues 2 kinds of stock, and you have Google that issues debt, and it issues different kinds of debt. Now, all of these relate to the same
entity.
And when we had clients trading in one part of the firm with us versus another part of the firm, and you cannot actually relate all of these instruments together, you don't have a good view of how much risk on Google is this client exposed to. Okay, so I've just given you in a nutshell the big problem that we try to solve, which is to say, hey, we should have a securities master that actually also relates to companies and company data, right? Issuer. So there is a security, but there is an issuer, and they're 2 different entities, but they need to get related in different ways. Okay, and now you have the same kind of problem when it comes to skills and tasks and job titles, and you have.
Right.
So people are very happy that, oh, we have an ontology. We call it the job family. Now,
but
great.
It's not. It's a synonym dictionary.
Exactly.
It's a thesaurus, right?
It's a thesaurus, and also the thing that it does is every company has its own definition of job family, right? That they define as they evolve. Now, as a startup, we had very specific 5 jobs that we needed, 5 categories, and we made each of them a job family. That's great. But then how do we relate to somebody that is external to the organization that we're evaluating to bring into one of our jobs? how do we relate to them? And how do we say, what are the things that they have done that are best fit for us, or that are the most required for us? And to do that, you need to actually understand the job that the person has done in terms of its components, which are tasks that they've done, the expertise that they have in skills that are required for those tasks. So this is for us.
And on top of that, it needs to be probabilistic, right? I mean, it needs to be, you need to allow it to evolve. You can't have this rigid structure that's a taxonomy. It needs to be evolving and probabilistic, in addition to this kind of fuzzy, I don't know, confidence weighted, I don't want to say grading, because everybody goes, oh no, grading, but you have to have the ability to have nuances. Like I was telling you about the Monte Carlo analysis that I use, which gives a confidence rating of the depth of the range. So like there's an 85 to 90% probability, but we are also strong or weak confident on that probability. Those are two dimensions for the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
instead of just, Java equals software equal, right?
Yeah. Okay. And the idea is to also evolve these measures, the two measures that you talked about, the confidence that you have and the probability estimate that you have, to evolve them as you see evidence, right? And as you
compare it with other evidence in the same flow.
That's and I think this notion of supporting evidence that helps strengthen the relationships that different things have in your ontology, as well as how you look at candidates. Even looking at a candidate and saying this candidate has this skill, you could look at a resume and say this candidate is representing to have the skill, right? We haven't yet proven that they have this skill.
Right. They claim to have it,
right? And then as you do an interview process or an assessment process or a pre-assessment that you send them to, you can then gather more evidence that says, hey, the candidate represented that they had 85% or 8 out of 10 level of skill, but their assessment comes out at 5.
So different.
You can actually weigh them both and say, hey, here is what we really realistically think the candidate has.
So is it realistic to expect the hiring manager to be able to communicate this to the recruiter, or for the recruiter to be able to gather this information? Or are we looking at, you're laughing at me.
So this is part of the dialogue, right? So I mentioned here that I've had conversations with the recruiter, giving them a full day in the life of. Even with that, right, the ability to summarize that into something that the recruiter can either put in a job description or actually have in mind in front of them while they're looking at a candidate, it's very hard. So because the communication that a hiring manager does is done under duress and under pressure. They think of this as like, I need this person. I've thought about this already. Why don't I have the people coming in, right? They think of the communication, the amount of time that they spend with a recruiter or a sourcer as not actually productive time, because they want to get on with the rest of their day's job, right? So the way we approach this, and I believe that it's part of the tooling that's lacking, is a high fidelity communication between the hiring manager and the recruiter. And the high fidelity for us is something where you take whatever is being understood by the recruiter and represented, in terms of some kind of a device. Think of it as your two dimensions of confidence and the level of skill required, or the estimated skill required.
Okay.
And presenting that in some kind of a visual way that is shared between the recruiter and the hiring manager and confirmed before you go off to evaluate.
Confirmed via assessment or interview.
Before you do that, you say, okay, hey, this is the rubric, right? This is how we are looking at people, right? And and even using that as a mechanism to drive your job description. So before you even put something out there, you have, everything be driven by this common understanding. We believe that's really a crucial thing that is missing. So if you were to think about the process, right? If I were to look at a portfolio construction in finance,
financial,
and I say, hey, the portfolio should have this level of risk and this kind of reward outline, outlook. Then from that, I can say, okay, if I have a niece that is looking to start college, next year, and she has a little nest egg of savings, and she doesn't want to risk the principal. So in that portfolio construction, I have zero tolerance for principal risk, right? Because she has to pay the college tuition next year with that money. And so that drives the kind of instruments that I would select. Very similarly, what you are looking for in your team, in your newest team member, that I want them to be a team player. I want them to be a good communicator. I want them to, have these kinds of talent and skill. Agreeing on that is crucial before you go evaluate and say, here is the kind of person that I want to bring in.
I just want to reiterate. So for folks that are listening, basically this fundamentally changes. You add another level of rigor to the conversation between the TAA partner and the hiring manager. Before even before the job posting gets written and before the job description gets written, that I don't think this exists right now. This kind of conversation doesn't currently exist. It changes the way that we work with hiring managers, because right now, that job posting, that job description, the conversation between the recruiter and the hiring manager is basically a list of wish list items. Like I want this, and this, and this, but there's no categorization or weighing of that. Like you see a lot of required and optional. So obviously required is binary, right? You have this or you do not. You have a degree, you don't have a degree. And then the optional are like nice to have, but there's not like any kind of conversation around the tolerance for that at all. That doesn't exist.
And so what we imagine is being able to take that note of the discussion with the hiring manager, or even as you're having this discussion, you have some kind of this is the future as I see it, right? And so you have the hiring manager say, hey, we need a dev who knows React, maybe some SQL, must be a team player, needs to be in New York City 3 days a week, right?
Okay. Yep.
You're looking for a seniorish person, not junior. That is the kind of description you get today, right?
That's pretty run of the mill, right?
Now you want to use tools like advanced tools like AI agents that will take just that description, and with a whole bunch of framework that we would help build for you, that we have as tools, will automatically construct a job description and this device that I was telling you about, which says, hey, this means that they should have, a must-have is React. Must-have is React at the level of 7 out of 10 or more.
Okay, so the leveling of that's what you're saying, is the leveling of that skill. Okay, that's the missing piece.
Narrative description, a job description, right? That follows the kind of narrative that you typically would have in your organization. But you also have this device that is created. Now, that becomes the communication back to the hiring manager right then to say, hey, we have this. This is what I understood. Do you want to actually tweak that device and give them access to the device so they can tweak it? And as they tweak it, the narrative changes, right? And the understanding, the commonality of understanding is established.
Right, the probabilistic guideline. Okay. Interesting. So a level of confidence and probability that would add that dimension. So are you saying that, I mean, is this like AI everywhere? Are we talking about just let AI loose on the whole process, or where do we?
So there are, I mean, that opens a Pandora's box of, what are the limits of AI, what are the risks of AI, and of course, everything that you and I and everyone else in this world are worried about, is AI coming for everyone's job, right? And so my take is, uh, AI has a lot of uses that we can actually leverage it for, and very successfully being done in many places already. But with respect to recruiting, I believe that we have to use AI in very guided ways, and with a lot of guardrails. And the guardrails are because of bias is one of the things that we should worry about. Accuracy itself is improving a lot from when we had the original ChatGPT come out to where things are at now. But I would say, even so, uh, factual validation of what the AI is saying back to you is definitely important, because ultimately the AI is a probabilistic machine. It's not a deterministic machine, right? It's a probabilistic
It
machine.
is, yeah, right. The way it is now, right?
Yeah, and it has some links, internal links of, after this word I should say this word in this context, and this next word and this next word. That's what generative AI is about. It is basically making a decision what word to say next in the stream of words, right?
This sounds a lot like alpha in finance.
It is. It is. In the sense that, uh, well, there are many similarities in finding alpha, and alpha for people is basically the ability to, for people that are not familiar with it,
Overperform on the baseline better
sorry,
than expected, or hopefully
it-
that's
that-
positive alpha.
over the market, right? So
Right,
if you
right,
better take $100 and put it on the market being some index that is very broad, like,
right. The S&P 500 is doing 8%. Your portfolio is doing 10%. You're a +2 alpha.
you're +2 alpha, right?
Right.
But what is the source of this alpha? The source of this alpha is delving deep into the into each of the companies and being able to select. Is there an opportunity to select? And the opportunity to select in HR world is the opportunity to select the right candidates, and the opportunity to have, how do you better inform the decision by going after and collecting more information? And how do you make your entire process, the TA process from end to end, a higher quality by having it be better informed end to end?
In recruiting, alpha has, I mean, we do have our own kind of version of it in recruiting. We have the value that you create above what, baseline was expected. So, you know, there was a period of time when I was working for a big technology, $2 billion technology company, a tech unicorn. There was, I don't know if this is still around, a lot of talk about 10x engineers. So that's an engineer that is a hire that produces 10 times the value of other engineers. So they 10x your product in a way that it would take 10 other people to do it. So they're kind of worth the same as 10 other engineers. It's similar in that way. Now that's obviously that's a massive multiplier, and whether or not that actually exists or is possible at all, whatever, that's where the debate was. But that's kind of our version of alpha, hiring the person who ends up developing the iPhone for your company, not the person that already did the iPhone for another company. That gets really expensive, and you don't know, like you said before, you don't know if they're going to produce. Just because they did the iPhone already doesn't mean they have another iPhone in them. So we want to find the people that are going to be able to produce that, whatever that is, the next thing, and that's the alpha, the TA alpha for us, right?
Actually, what is the DNA that makes somebody, enable somebody to be a creator of an iPhone? You want to go after that rather than that, here is somebody that produced the iPhone
And
and
the evidence, right?
Now, the 10xing, oftentimes in the AI world, the hyperbole is 100xing. Okay, so
Oh,
it's not
okay.
100x, but most studies that I have seen show that in the operations world, and TA would fall under operations in a firm, has about a 80% ROI, 80% improvement, when you include AI within the first year. Now, what is the alpha for a recruiter? I don't know if that is of interest for us to delve into. So the alpha that, with AI for an individual. So we talked about, crafting a job description, for example.
Mhm.
You could definitely use your own, personal chat GPT or Claude or what have you, or Gemini, to ask it to help you.
Mhm.
So, hey, we need a dev that knows React, to a job description. Now, what you would want to do is to provide it a lot of guardrails. So, and there is lots of scope for people to introduce their own alpha, even before you go acquire any tools, including ours. If you want to try this out, this is what I would say is in the realm of possible. But the guidelines that you have to do are a number of different things, right? So, and the typical mechanism for this includes things like being able to tell it what are the constraints, what is the persona that the AI,
Okay.
right? And
So yeah, you're basically saying when you're creating the whatever prompt, which I don't even know if that's the right thing anymore, but when you're creating that, you're instructing the AI. You're saying, um, I want you to behave as if you were this persona. Yeah. So this is you. I'm identifying what you're supposed to do. I'm identifying what the goal is, the objective, and then the output. Right. That's good prompting discipline. Is
yeah, and
okay.
having a discipline helps create alpha, right? And
I
because
see. Okay.
then because you would
But what really happens is people just go on ChatGPT and say, "Find me 5 candidates that have React."
it's I mean it
It's
can,
that literally just let's roll some dice here, random.
so I think that having ChatGPT find you the candidates is probably the worst thing that you could do to your alpha, because you're not giving it any, it can provide you with 5 people that are already in your firm, and that's that's the worst thing that you're going to have, right? And you're not really, if you don't set in the kinds of experience that is required, and the kinds of, you have to set a lot of guardrails before you can use chat as the recruiting tool. I don't think it's the appropriate use of chat, but I think you can definitely use it for individual tasks, like I need to craft a job description, and you need to set it up for that, right? Similarly, if like you want to write a nice email to candidates that you're not proceeding with, let's call it an empathetic rejection. Now,
Okay, right.
if you want to create an empathetic rejection, you can definitely use chat to come up with the kind of response that you need to have, that's even personalized for the person, right? So, for example, it could take inputs from you to say, hey,
Inputs for the yeah.
uh, inputs for what kinds of things. So you could say, look, I have a general thing for a general rule that avoid corporate speak. So don't say that we decided to move in a different direction. That's the worst thing. That's
I hope this email finds you well. We've decided to move in a different direction.
uh,
Best regards.
if,
Oh man, you might as well not even send an email at that point.
and if possible, inject like 1 or 2 pieces of actionable feedback, right? So if you say, look, you didn't have, let's say we're looking for this React person, and the person didn't have applying React in a SaaS environment is what they were really lacking, right? So they didn't have SaaS exposure. Now we have SaaS here to SaaS going to implode. Some people are actually taking that bet already, but by SaaS I mean software as a service. And so if you want to say that, it can, it can inject something like that with just saying no SaaS as part of your input to a little agent that you set up for yourself. It can say, okay, you would want to be suggest that, for roles like this, you should get more SaaS experience, right? And you can also say, we'll keep your, we'd be happy to keep your thing on file, your resume on file. That's also standard corporate speak. But if you want to say that, reach back out and sometime, we can do that too, right? So empathetic email and empathetic rejections is another kind of agent that you can do to your own alpha. As a recruiter, you can improve your brand by being someone that, not that you're letting somebody down easily. That's not the empathetic agent gets to the point right away, right? In the first paragraph, you're already telling them, they're not moving forward in this process, right? But you're giving them something to for the time that they input into the process, particularly if they went through an interview process. You're giving them some valuable feedback.
That's huge. And you can automate that with AI easily, but it's something that I think scares a lot of organizations, because then they're, it's exposure to risk, right? Oh, if we reject somebody and they take it the wrong way, they're going to sue us or whatever. But like the opposite of that is also equally risky. You just constantly just sending people these generic, hey, thanks for flying all the way out to meet us, spending the entire day with us, sitting through 7 interviews. But we're moving in a different direction. I mean, that's just bad too. So
yeah. So and that doesn't mean that you create liability. You can also, put it through a rigorous process to say, there is no liability.
Yeah, you can do it without doing that. Yeah, you definitely can.
That's part of the thing that an AI can do, is to say, polish this to the point. And then definitely it's not going to automatically send this off. It's going to give you the text and you decide, whether to send it.
So we have a question from the audience. So should I use AI to select the best candidates?
You should use AI to inform you so that you can select the best candidate. So that's
inform you with this other dimension of, the confidence and the rating, and so give you the data that you can't get yourself because it's too much work to do it manually, right? Like for every candidate, going out to the company to see if they do React, like, that kind of thing. So AI is a point of data, is what you're saying.
AI can be a very well articulated point of data, right, that provides you with lots of insights and intelligence, but AI is not the one to make the final trigger pull to say, oh, don't hire this person or hire this person. That comes from,
right, that's the
activity.
Human needs to do that.
Telling you that this person doesn't have all of these things that are required for the job. It can tell you that. And so it makes your job easier to say, no, if they don't have the 3 things that are must-haves for this job, I go forward with them. And
I think a smart AI should be able to detect that difference, because like, here's an example for something that happened today. I was helping one of my colleagues and going through some resumes, and there was an applicant that arguably, in my personal opinion, was the absolutely best qualified out of the 25 applicants that were in the process. This one person was the by far most qualified for the job, except for one piece of detail. And that was that the requirements require that the person has a degree in mechanical engineering or equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a chemical engineering degree, which is really not equivalent to mechanical engineering. There are other degrees that are more equivalent than chemical. So in the spirit of, the requirement, they would have been knocked out because chemical engineering is really too far away from mechanical engineering. The AI would have knocked them out if the AI was just looking for keywords and ontology. But a smart AI was able to detect, and flag it and say, hey, I would normally reject this person, but you should not reject them. You should ask the hiring manager if chemical engineering is, or at least this, maybe this chemical engineering degree has enough mechanical components in it. And so instead of just saying this person has a below passing score, which would result in rejection, it says you shouldn't pass on them because if this one thing changes from not qualified to qualified, then they have the best score.
And that's very, very important and astute, right? And it is also contextually, to be evaluated. If the chemical engineering, if the degree was from 15 years ago, and they've spent their time since then in a lot of mechanical engineering jobs, that more than makes up for, the difference, right?
So and they were in a process engineering environment where they, so right. And so the AI, was smart enough to flag that was a possibility.
Right.
Too close to call, right? Basically.
Exactly. So if they worked in material science, for example, and they were doing tensile, looking at creating
that's related,
that have certain tensile properties. Now that it involves lots more mechanical engineering tools, techniques than just the chemical side.
Just the chemical, right, exactly. So we're getting pretty close to the end of our time together, and I want to make sure that I had the opportunity to ask you something that's really been just a burning question in my mind for a while now. And I ask a lot of people that I respect and value their opinion about this because I think it's really important. TA leaders, I hear a lot from my customers and from people at conferences and events. TA leaders like to say that they're data driven, but when I probe, it's like what they really mean is number of open recs and time to fill, which to me is not really data driven. What does real data driven TA actually look like?
Wow, that's that is actually an interesting thing. So since you talked about engineering, so let's think about the TA process actually as an engineering process.
God forbid.
And in any engineering process, you would have to look at end to end and throughput. Yes, you definitely look at that, right? And then what are the things that actually improve the throughput? So if you had an organization who's expecting to hire 500 roles this year, okay, now you start to think about that. Like 500 roles are the role definitions. What is the time taken for the role definition? From the hiring manager and the TA discussion, how long does it take? What does it take to approve that role and create a record of it? How long does it take to post it? How long does it take? How are you doing with respect to the response rates? Are you actually doing A/B testing of your posts to see if different ways of posting the same job give you
different
better
outcomes?
better, more importantly, quality over quantity, right? So what is the signal to noise of different types of postings? You have to really think through this one step of the process at a time, and then look at so the time to hire is a very coarse metric. It's a coarse metric
because my opinion, it's useless.
Because you're combining many aspects, many parts of the processes. And the very early thing that I learned when I studied statistical process control was that you have to really understand your variance. Where is it coming from? So if your variability, if you have some roles take you 2 weeks to fill and some roles that take you the standard 18 weeks to fill, you need to really look at
what the difference is between those two.
What are the sources of this variance?
Yeah.
And this variance flow and figuring it out is really being data driven. And
unfortunately, what happens often is they look at the average. So 20 of your processes take 8 days and 20 of your processes take 100 days. So our average time to fill is 45. Well, in fact, none of our jobs have ever been filled in 45 days. It's either been 8 or 100. So that's kind of like what ends up happening. But yeah. Well, is there anything that you want to let folks know about before we close out? I know that we covered a lot of material, but was there something that TA leaders really need to know? And folks, I don't know if I put Maddie's profile up. I should have done that. If I didn't, you can connect with him here, or the name of his company is Blujin. So let me add that here: BLUJIN.co. Okay. So yeah, closing thoughts. What should you?
So we talked today. We touched on a number of subjects, of course, with the current constant presence of AI and AI agents, right, as being one of the themes. I would say, in light of what is the art of the possible, a lot of skills are being bundled into agents, right? And when I say skills, I'm talking about the kinds of things that we have the recruiting organization do, recruiters and TA folks do, things like calendaring and going back and forth. And so, of course, we're seeing a lot of automated tools with respect to that. But even the automated tools are not doing, even there, which is the easiest of things, I would say, lowest hanging fruit. They're not doing a great job of notifying when that meeting actually took place. So the calendaring is done, but you don't get a notification that a meeting has taken place. Here are the notes. You don't get those kinds of things.
It's not proactive.
And so keep in mind that while you adopt some tools and things, that there are a lot of things that go missing. So be sure to be on the lookout for, does this actually fulfill that? Definitely in your organization, up the training that you give to people on, this is the latest things. Like, 30 years ago, you would say to any financial analyst, be sure to take Excel macros, right, as training. And same thing now. This is agentic
Be
AI.
sure to take AI as training.
As a training. You have to do that. Every job needs to do that.
And if you're going to take AI as a training, you should take it from tsiuniversity.com.
There you go.
Excellent. So I think the big advice here is get some training and learn about it, because it may not be in everything, but it's going to be in a lot of places.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, that was of course, very intellectual conversation as expected. Hopefully I'll have some time to digest this and put up some kind of summary inside TSI University. But thank you so much for participating on this before, and hope to have you back.
My pleasure. Yeah. Look forward to coming back. And if people have questions, they can definitely reach out to me at maddy@blujin.com, maddy@blujin.com. Very take any kind of questions that people have, and if you need some advice, or if you want to just make a comment on, on this conversation, happy to take that.
Want to learn about data analytics, etc. All right. Cool. Well, thanks a lot. Hey, folks, we will see you back here next week. Until then, be kind to yourselves. Take care. Bye-bye.